everyone. Welcome to Real Dad Speak, a show where real dads share their stories about being present in a child's life with the goal of raising them to become responsible adults. I am your host, Sarah McClure, and today my guest is Kirk Henry II, and I met him at Orchestra Hall, also known as DSO. Kurt is the lighting director and a proud dad. Today I'm going to talk to Kurt about having a job that has allowed him to spend a good amount of time being a dad, more so than his previous job where he was traveling on the road all the time. So, welcome, Kurt. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start off with some background, basic questions. So, what city did you grow up in?
I grew up most of my life in Redford, Michigan.
Okay. What school did you go to, or what schools did you go to? High school?
I went to Redford Union High School.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older sister and I have two younger brothers.
Are you guys close?
We kind of flit in and out of closeness through over the course of our lives. I'm currently not especially close to them, but I'm not estranged to either one or any of the three of them.
Is that due to your work schedule or their work schedule?
Well, it's due. My sister lives up in northern Michigan. It's about 5 hours away, and my brothers are 10 and 12 years younger than me. So our life cycles are separated enough that it makes it difficult to be close.
Okay. All right. So, what did your parents do for a living?
My mother was a special education teacher, and my father was a maintenance engineer at Schoolcraft College.
What kind of activities did you guys do as a family?
My parents were split when I was 4 years old, so we didn't have a whole lot of whole family activity that way. Um, we would camp a lot with my mom in the summer as a family, and with my father on weekends, we would do things like we roller skated a lot. We actually took figure skating lessons, my sister and I, with him. Went to the movies a lot, that kind of stuff.
Okay. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Um, that's such an interesting question because everybody always has a thing. Really, the only thing that I wanted to be growing up was I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And as luck would have it, I'm 6'2", and that completely disqualifies me from being a fighter pilot.
Really? They have a height requirement?
Yeah, generally they're looking for people that are about the size of a horse jockey, because the cockpits are very small and weight is very important. So.
Did you go to a museum, or how'd you end up wanting to have that as? Because I mean, that's not like a normal uh, career to pick. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a doctor. A fighter.
Yeah, I
I,
spent a lot of time in libraries as a kid, reading a lot of books and history books and books about World War II, and I was just always fascinated with airplanes. And the movie Top Gun probably had something to do with it,
okay.
which came out when I was young. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Okay. Did you have a second choice, or that was it? And
I not really. I actually, as a young man, never really had that far reaching of personal vision. it I ended up in my career almost by happenstance. So
so, after you graduated from high school, what was your first job or school? Did you
um,
go to school or take up a trade?
immediately on graduating high school, I went in the Army,
Oh,
uh, and where I was a Patriot missile enhanced operator maintainer.
what is
And
that?
um, we set up and reloaded the Patriot missile system and
Okay.
maintained electronics on the launcher and everything. So we were uh, electronics and mechanics maintenance.
Okay. Okay. So, after you got out of the army, where'd you end up working, or did you
Uh,
stay 10 years, or 4 or 6 years, or?
I did 2 years in the Army, and then I got out of the Army and went into optics. I worked for Pearl Vision and Lens Crafters in sales and also in the lab making the lenses for glasses, and took that quite seriously, learned as much as I could about it. Um, and then I got tricked into a pyramid scheme that I left that profession for, and selling vacuum cleaners. I won't mention any names. And ended up working for my dad, that he had a side hustle painting houses and businesses, and painted a business, and started talking to a gentleman who was checking in on me while I was there alone. And at the end of our conversation, which was about school and about life and everything, he introduced himself as the owner of the company and offered me a position at the company working in his warehouse. That company was a lighting design firm, and one of their specialties was theatrical style lighting for architectural. And I started in his warehouse, and by the time I left that company, it's called Illuminating Concepts. It's in Farmington Hills, Michigan. I was managing his projects globally.
Wow.
Um, I used my background in electronics that I got in the Army and what I learned in lensing and multiplied it by what they had to show me about lighting and the leadership skills that I learned in college or in the Army, and also in high school, because I was an Army ROTC all the way through high school. I was able to apply to project management and ran.
Wow.
So it was great, but I was gone all the time.
Because it was global. Yeah. Wow. So this led you to become a lighting director for theaters, or what do
Yeah,
you call
the
it?
journey's a little longer than that, but yeah, eventually, I ended up. I was the head electrician at Music Hall for some years, um, and then the pandemic happened, and all that time I dabbled in a lot of different lighting. So I did some film lighting, some stage lighting. During the pandemic, I spent a lot of time during doing lighting for feature films that were still being recorded. I worked for Netflix and some other studios. I worked for Paramount. Um, but all the while, I knew that there was a situation at Orchestra Hall, because Dennis and I have known each other for some time, and I work in and out of Orchestra Hall out of our local. And I had told Dennis that if the position there opened, that I was very interested in it, and I would drop everything I was doing and come work for him. And the position officially opened, and I dropped everything I was doing and came and worked at Orchestra Hall with Dennis.
Okay, so now tell me about, describe your current job. What is a lighting director? What exactly do you do?
Well, um, I design the lighting for, say, our pop shows. I program the lighting for the pop shows, usually with no input from any outside source. It's my artistic eye and um, my programming on the console that makes the lights do what they do for the shows. I'm also responsible for maintaining all of the lights in the building, all of the dimming systems in the building, and managing the crews that I need to do those things. Also combined with making sure that the musicians have what they need, making sure that the stage is set appropriately for every show. Whether the orchestra is playing at Orchestra Hall or if we are on the road, which we will be doing a little bit of. Um, for instance, this February we're going to Florida for a week. Um, so my position is lighting director. It has a lot to do with lighting, but it also has a lot of stagecraft in it as well, and some managerial stuff too. And I also get to be an ambassador with the musicians. So it's there's a lot of key points on it for me that provide wholeness.
And it's funny how your life has, like, um cultivated you to be who you are. You say you took ROTC in high school, then you went to the Army and they taught you electronics, and you got more leadership skills. Then you became a manager and you combined that to become a global manager. Then now you're a lot. It just all seems like it just fell into place, just as it should. And some people complain when they go to a job and say, "I wanted to apply just to be the secretary, and now they're trying to make me the copier person in this. But all of those skills came together for you, and now
Yeah,
look.
I
Yeah.
think if I was to say what my best skill is, it's making the most with what I have.
Okay.
And what I've continually done throughout my life is managed to stack the things that I have in a way that brought me to the next level.
Mm, yeah, and you've done a fantastic job too, because you
Thank you.
are director, not so. Congrats on that. So
Thank you.
now you've been in all of these productions and stuff. So you've been around a lot of celebrities, probably.
I
Is
brought-
there a story or funny story that you could share? Um, concerning your career so far.
I can tell you a funny story of interaction with actors. I usually stay quiet around the talent myself, but a friend of mine was working on the set of Saturday Night Live in the 80s.
Okay.
And Billy Idol was playing as the act that weekend. And he was riding the elevator up to the set, and Billy Idol got on the elevator with him, and he just kind of nodded at him. And then on the next floor, the guitar player for the Saturday Night Live band came on to the elevator, and he grabbed Billy Idol's arm and he says, Bill, do you know who that is? That guy's on TV. He's famous. He said Billy Idol had a really good laugh at that.
That's so crazy. So your name, you told me about your name. Tell me a story about your name, because you are the second. So
Yes, I'm Kurt Douglas Henry II, and I'm named after my father, who was Kurt Douglas Henry, and my son is Kurt Douglas Henry III. Um, my grandmother named my father after Kirk Douglas. Even though it is Kurt Douglas, it is in the spirit of Kirk Douglas. On my 40th birthday, I was working at the Fisher Theater, and um, Kirk Douglas had died the day before. And I was telling the head electrician at the Fisher Theater that, it was a bit of a coincidence that I'm kind of in sequence named after Kirk Douglas, and he died the day before my 40th birthday. She said I had to tell the stage manager from the tour. We were doing Mandy Katinkin that night, and because she was good friends with Catherine Zeta-Jones, who is married to Michael Douglas. So the next thing I know, on my 40th birthday, I was having a phone call with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas, telling him how my father was named after him and I'm named after my father, and his father had passed away. So it's kind of a long way around, but it was an interesting experience.
yeah, who gets to meet two celebrities by phone on their birthday? Uh,
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And
That's,
he actually really appreciated that, even though we were so separated, people were thinking about his father, and not necessarily for his fame at that time, for my connection to him. It was pretty neat.
nice. That's nice. So after you found this career that you love in
Mhm.
lighting, Um, did you think about getting married, having kids, and all of that when you finally got like the global position as a manager? You're still young, right? Are you married yet, or did you think
No,
about?
I was not married, and really kind of like how I approached my "what are you going to do when you grow up" way to life. I never really had any concrete plans regarding marriage or a family. Um, I always thought it would be something nice, but I didn't see a path to that in what was in front of me. And I ended up being a father
Okay,
and getting married, and that situation didn't work out because it's a very difficult reason to get married. Um, but it evolved into what it is today, and I wouldn't have lived my life any other way. Um,
have one
even
baby,
just
one
one. Yeah.
child. All right. Do you plan to have more?
No, I do not plan to have more. And my current partner is not able to have babies. So even if I wanted to have more babies, not going to happen.
Well, you can always adopt.
Yeah, adopting is always an issue. I think I'd rather be a grandfather
Oh, okay.
at
Oh,
some point.
in 20 years, you will be a granddaddy. Okay. All right. So, Um, how'd you meet your son's mom? Were you guys in school? working or whatever? How'd
Um,
you?
we met we met through a friend. We were both friends of the same person and made a connection.
All right. So, do you have couples in your life that's been married 20, 30 years? You know, and you're like, wow, how'd you do that?
There are some few, yes, and it is mind-boggling, but I do think it's entirely possible. It is achievable, but it takes the right two people in the right circumstances.
I agree. I agree. Are your grandparents still? I mean, were your grandparents married a long time?
Um, no, my grandparents were both married several times. However, one pair of grandparents, their marriage ended because one of them died. So that was a slightly different circumstance, but um, my other set of grandparents were split in a more traditional manner that involves courts and lawyers.
So, when you were little, did you spend time with your grandparents?
Not a lot.
All right.
I
Was it
mean,
a
anytime we could, my dad's. I've actually never met either of my paternal grandfathers.
oh,
Um, my nobody has spoken to my nobody has spoken to my father's father since 1981, and my mother's father passed away when she was 15.
oh,
So my grandfathers were always my step grandfathers, and my grandmother's my dad's mom passed away when she was 62. I was quite young. Um, and my mom's mom lived on Drummond Island in the Upper Peninsula, so the opportunity to see her was not huge. I did have the opportunity to spend the last few years of her life with her. She was living with my mother, and I lived there for a little while during this period of time, and was able to spend a great deal of time with her and even take care of her as her years turned to twilight and then she diminished. And that was pretty cool because I had never had a really opportunity like that to get to know her
right.
earlier.
Find out a lot about your history, your family's history, how she grew up, and some of the
Yeah,
things does because your grandma gave her those morals and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe,
During that period of my life, for instance, I found out that she was from Nova Scotia. I hadn't known that.
oh,
Um, I found out she had never had a driver's license, which is interesting. Seems like such a foreign concept to us today. Um, one of my grandparents was my great grandmother that I did spend a bit more time with as a kid because my mother took care of her in her 80s and 90s. So I did spend quite a bit of time with my grandma Eula, who was my mom's father's mother.
okay.
Uh, so she I spent time with. My progenitors 2 generations back I didn't spend a lot of time with.
So, did you guys have a family tradition like every Christmas we're gonna do this, every Thanksgiving we get together, or every summer we do this?
The only family traditions that we had regarding holidays was that I went to probably 4 houses on every holiday because our families were so scattered, and that actually is something that I changed in our family because I remember it being incredibly frustrating as a child. Um, so once I had my own child, I told the rest of my family that we were going to one place or staying at home on a holiday, and if they wanted to see us, they could go there. And it actually ended up bringing the family closer together because we all ended up going to one place on holidays
Good.
instead of going to my Aunt Renee's and then running over to Aunt Ruth's and then going to, it's just like all in one day is too much.
Right. Right. Especially if they're in Michigan, the roads are terrible.
Right.
So
Sorry, the
who
dog.
I say, so who are more alike? Like, are you more like your mom? Do you have more of your mom ways, or do you have more of your dad's ways? Who are you more like?
If you had asked me this question even 10 or 15 years ago, I would have certainly said my dad. Um, but at this stage in my life, with the relationship that I have with both of them, which is I have a good relationship with both of them, I would say that I'm probably an equal balance of the two.
Good. Because I see your mom has a nurturing side to her.
She
And
does.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So when you found out you were going to be a dad, what were you excited about when what excited you about dad?
well, I mean, it's an exciting prospect just by its own nature. Um, you know, I certainly weighed it against my relationship that I have with my father and the opportunity to have those experiences with, but from the other side of the coin. Um, I would say that that's probably the biggest thing that I was excited about was the opportunity to be a dad the way that my dad had been to me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what's your favorite story about growing up and you like to tell your son? Because you spent time with both grandmas, you spent time with your mom, you spent time with
Hmm.
your dad. Is there a story that you just like to share with him?
Mm,
Because when we're young, and if we become too demanding about things, our parents say, "Do you know I had to walk to school 10 miles barefoot or something like that?" If your son, because we tend to spoil him since he's the only child. I'm thinking that is he spoiled?
he can be.
Okay,
He can be. Um, depends on the circumstances, the place, and what's going on. There are times when he spoils, and there's time when he has gone without. So, um, so probably what I relate most from my childhood to him is the difference in. Um, I guess I don't like saying punishment, but the difference in discipline, the way that those things were handled for me as a child, um, are completely different than the way that he was disciplined and guided. There was a lot of physical discipline in the house that I grew up in, and there is and has been almost none, as little as possible. I I'm not above, or was not above when he was 2. If he tried to run out into a busy street, maybe swatting him on the side and saying, "No, don't do that,"
right,
um, because that is something that requires an immediate reaction. And
right.
putting him over my knee and spanking him, I never did that. So that probably is the thing that I've relayed most to him about my childhood is that um, how that was handled and how we didn't do that in our house. I know this sucks, but I could have done this the way that it was handled when I was a kid.
Right.
Um, other than
Yeah.
that, I don't really talk a lot about my childhood with him.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, say you read a lot of books and stuff. Do you have a favorite book? Did you share it with him? Does he read? Read?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. My favorite book series is by Jim Butcher, and it's called The Dresden Files. And I think they're at like either 13 or 17 novels, and it's about a wizard who lives in modern day Chicago, and he's a private investigator. So it kind of has like this gumshoe kind of like noir feel to it, but it also has wizards and there's elves and knights of the cross, and so it's this kind of like Harry Potter. There's this
Right.
whole world of
That's what I'm.
magic exists that, but it's more of an adult setting uh,
Okay.
than Harry Potter is, and um, I shared those with him when he was 16, and he immediately read the entire series.
That's fascinating that you got your son to read a book because most kids they are video gamers. That's
Yes,
what.
and
And
Kurt is.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
yeah, I actually got him into reading. His mom is a reader as well, and he always saw that there was always a book sitting on my coffee table, and um, it's how I've always spent some of my spare time throughout his life. So he always saw that. But when he was quite young, before he could read, I started reading Harry Potter to him as a bedtime story.
okay.
And I would read, half a chapter or a whole chapter, depending on how awake he was or how late it was. And then he started learning how to read in school. And one night he said, "Hey, Dad, can you leave the light on for a little while? And do you mind if I read a little bit of it on my own?" And it evolved from that to him taking the book with him. And
Okay.
then he read the whole series. So him being a reader kind of grew organically out of me being a reader and sharing it with him.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's yeah, because I mean, like you say, the way you were raised, well, the way I was raised as well, you got whoopings
Hmm.
and not allowed to tell your side of the story.
Right.
So parenting now, when a kid asks why, you actually tell them why.
Yeah, you
And
don't say I said so.
yeah, my grandson has told me, he said, I wouldn't have done a lot of things if you and mom and my dad would have told me why, but you always just said, do what I say. And I think that's the difference in the parenting now. And then they don't have to, you guys don't have to whoop kids because if they're stuck on those toys, those phones, you take them away from them. And, you know, I guess that's their little punishment for that moment or second or whatever. It's a little different.
It's amazing the leverage that you can get from such a material addiction or a material attachment. You know,
Yes.
phones, computers, Xboxes, you know,
Yeah.
I don't have to raise my hand to you because I know where it hurts the most.
Yes. And you never would have thought that. I I never would have thought that. I'm just like, please, man, I'm gonna whoop you, but I mean, this is a different age when you talk to the younger parents now. Um, so other than reading, what other types of activities did you do with your son when he was growing up?
We walked around the neighborhood a lot with the dog, and he when Kurt was younger, he didn't live with me. I had him every weekend,
Okay.
um, and he lived with his mother regularly or during the week and for school. So he would come over, and we would walk the neighborhood, go to parks, ride bikes. After a certain age, we did start playing video games together, but we would play Legos together and play cars and um, color, kid stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then at a certain age, he did get into video games, so we spent quite a bit of time playing video games together because I also play video games. Um, and yeah, so
So what did he want to be when he grew up? Did he always tell you what he wanted to be? Did he want to
he
be
always
like?
wanted to be a video game programmer. And I think part of the reason for that is there was a portion of my career where I programmed control systems. So he often saw me writing code for these control systems, and so he kind of attached that to his love for video games and said, "Oh, I want to do what my dad does and
Right.
program video games."
Uh,
Um, and as he got older, it was a little easier to reason with him about not only the difficulty of that, but the becoming a very successful video game programmer is almost akin to becoming a famous actor. Notwithstanding the fact that it takes 1,000 people to make one of these major video game titles. Um, he, for a while, was quite enamored with Minecraft. He still plays Minecraft, but the creator of Minecraft created that whole game by himself. And so he kind of had this idealistic idea that he was going to create a video game completely by himself and become this kind of superstar the way the guy that made Minecraft is. And so there was a little conversation and rationale involved there that kind of brought him a little bit more down to earth regarding it. And then also as he moved through high school, at which point he did live with me. He moved in with me when he was 14 full time. Um, we were able to get involved and learn what not only his interests were, but where his talents lied.
wow. Great.
Um, and he found engineering in high school and started drawing in AutoCAD and 3D spaces and really getting into the nuts and bolts of things. And eventually found his way to he's currently going to school for aerospace maintenance at MIAT in Canton. He's a year into the program, so it's pretty cool.
So he's not. He gets to come home every day. Then he's
Oh
not
yeah,
off. Oh,
yeah,
that's
every night
that's
here.
wow. That's wow. That's very impressive from a video game. Yeah. Wow.
I think it's a much more solid path for him. It's rooted in reality. He's going to finish the program with 3 certificates with the FAA, and an associate's degree, and he can work for any airline or aircraft operator in the world. Well, in
Wow.
America,
And
but
he's how old is he? He's just
he's
a baby.
19.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so had he ever been away from home for long periods of time before he went to college? You know, was he ever thinking about going away to college, leaving you guys?
Um, he never really had any grand plans of going away. It's the interesting thing about him going to college is when he moved in with me, there was not a high expectation that he was going to finish high school. He was not performing very well.
Right.
He was in an environment that um, he was struggling in. There wasn't the attention that he needed there. Um, there was love there, but um, it was it was not a good environment for him. And he when he moved in with me, he found himself in an environment that was more appropriate to him, that he got the attention and the guidance that he needed and was able to accelerate to going from we weren't sure if he was going to be able to finish high school on time to now he's in a program. So there was never really a lot of talk about what university he wanted to go to because we were kind of playing a catch up game through all
Oh,
of high school.
that's a hell of a catch up from not ready to being an engineer. Wow. So,
you know
but I
he
always say kids need structure. You can't
mhm.
just be lackadaisical and do what they wanted. They have to have structure. When they come up from school, they should have chores to do before they can go outside or do this or that and stuff. So he probably just need a little more structure.
Absolutely. They need structure. And what I've found is the structure and the guidance that they need probably is not what you intended when the whole journey started. It's something that you have to navigate as well
And you
while
gotta
they're going through it. There's the old adage, there's no manual for raising kids. It's true because the situation changes day by day.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. So when he said when he graduated and he says, okay, Dad, I want to go to college. He didn't say, I want to go to the service. He said, I want to go to college. Is that what he said?
He talked about going in the service. I was in the army. His mother was in the army.
Okay.
So there was kind of always this idea that I'm going to be like my parents and I'm going to be a soldier.
Mm.
And he talked to the Marines. He talked to the Navy. He um, was very interested in joining the Marines as an aviation technician, actually,
Oh,
which I supported. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't crazy about the idea, but I supported him in it. I really don't relish the idea of anybody possibly shooting at my son.
right.
I also know how very difficult that journey can be. Um, but it's what he wanted, so I was willing to back him on it because many people do it and many people are just fine.
Right.
Actually, it helps a lot of people. Like going into the army helped me in ways I never thought it would have. And then one day he says, I don't think I want to go in the Marines." And I said, "That's awesome, Kurt."
But he found a replacement and he said, instead of going to the Marines, I'm going to do.
That's when he came to me about the school. He talked to a recruiter at the school and he did the research himself and he looked it all up and he said, "So I think I can do what I want to do and not go in the Marines." And I went, "I think that that's probably a good idea because Kurt is he's very soft spoken. He can be kind of meek, which is interesting because he's also likes being the center of attention, but he's very slow to warm to it, you know. Um, and I my greatest fear really with him going in the military was that it was going to take him and give him a hard edge, and I I like him the way he is.
That's good. That's good. So, so he says, I'm going to school now, and so he how long has he been in school?
He's been going to MIAT since about a year, last fall.
All right. So he loves it.
He loves it. Yeah,
It is what the recruiter made it appear to be.
it is. And there have been rocky periods. There have been times where he thought about quitting.
Mhm.
Um, as is natural for human beings when they come across something that's difficult or repetitive, your first inclination is screw this, I'm out of here,
Right.
you know. And we had some good moments where I said no, I don't think that's a good idea. Number one, you've already dedicated X amount of time to this. There's
Right.
only this amount of time left. You think you should finish this. But by and large, he's really enjoyed the experience. The first thing that really blew him away was that they treat you like an adult in college. They don't treat you like a kid. you
Uh,
know,
what
which
an eye opener, huh?
say that again.
I say, what an eye opener, huh?
Yeah, yeah. All of a sudden, the instructors are talking to me like I'm a human. Not that teachers talk to children like they're humans, but they talk to children like they're dumb humans.
Oh no, for the most part, yeah, yeah,
There are
yes,
excellent teachers too, but
yeah. So, what family values have you taught him?
um, I'd like to think that I taught him unconditional love, acceptance, respect, which are, those three values right there, I think are the most important values of a family, and they can be some of the most difficult to maintain. Just like it's easy to say, screw this, this is hard, I'm out of here. Like it's really easy to do, even in a family situation. You know, we currently have three adults, him, myself, and Mishi, my fiance, that live in this house together. And you better believe that there are some difficult moments that it would be easy to just walk away from, because three adults have three different directions and three different opinions. But,
Yeah,
as long as you can maintain unconditional love and respect, anything's possible.
true. I agree. I agree. So, what qualities do you value the most in yourself?
In myself,
Yeah, what do you value?
um, integrity, intelligence, and endurance.
Wow, that's good. So, is there a lesson that you learned the hard way that you had to share with your son in the last few years?
Yeah. Um, the lesson that I learned over the course of my life of not always finishing everything that I started, and how 20 years later you can be asking yourself whether that was the right decision to make or not, but it's decades behind you. I actually recently leveraged that lesson with him in some of his difficulties that he was having with school.
Okay, all right. So, when he was younger, um, did you allow him to try new things and fail? Was it if he said, "Dad, I think I want to play basketball," or "I think I want to do football"? Um, did you
Yeah,
say no? You get hurt, or did you say okay?
no,
And
we tried to let him experience everything that he wanted to experience. Um, which interestingly enough, he was never terribly interested in playing sports. But I'm not really a sports person either, so that may have kind of shadowed onto him. Um, I can watch a football game. I am an American. I grew up in America. I know how to watch a football game. I can even enjoy watching a football game, but I would never sit down in front of my TV and go, "Oh, I want to watch football." Like. But if I go over to my buddy's house and he's watching a game, I can and even sometimes enjoy watching it. But it's not my chosen form of entertainment.
okay, all right. So what skills do you think are most valuable about being a dad?
Skills,
Yes.
patience is, I think, the number one skill that any parent needs to have. Um, did I mention patience? Communication, I think, is really important, because there's a thousand different ways to say things, and there may only be one way that will get through. So you need to be able to communicate and be patient. And I don't know, sharing, communication, patience. and love. I don't really know. I think with those skills you can do anything, because any skill that needs to be taught you can look up. You
Yeah.
can you can buy a book, or you can look it up on YouTube, you know.
Yeah. Have you taught him how to? Does he have a car?
He does have a car.
Have you taught him how to change a tire and
It,
make sure he watches the gauges and all that kind
we
of stuff?
This morning we were just in the backyard doing the brakes on his truck.
Oh, okay.
So he and I work on cars together frequently.
All right. What about things around the house? Have you taught him how to like change the filters in the like in the central air or change the washers in the sinks and stuff like that? Just just maintenance, yearly or monthly maintenance around the house. Have you taught him stuff like that?
Yeah, generally speaking, if he's around and there's something that I need to do, I'll grab him, and that's kind of something that I've done his entire life. Um, Grab him and show him what it's about, explain the situation to him. Actually, one of my favorite pictures of him, he and I are lying underneath the car together when he was like 4 or 5, and working on something. So yeah, car maintenance, house maintenance. He knows where the furnace filter is. He knows how to clean the filter on the dryer. Um, which we do every time we do clothes. That was an interesting thing that was new for him when he moved in with us at 14. Nobody does anybody else's laundry in our house.
Okay.
I do my laundry, Mish does her laundry, and he does his own laundry, folds it, puts it away.
Uh-huh.
Because we all have jobs. His job was school. Now he has a job and goes to school. I have a job that consumes as many as 70 or 80 hours of my week.
Right.
Misha's very busy with her job as well. So um, it's nobody's responsibility to make sure that your stuff is clean but yours.
I like that. So you talk about communication. Does he know that he can tell you anything?
I believe he does. I think sometimes he struggles with it a little bit because things can be intimidating or scary. I've frequently communicated to him that I don't care what situation he's in. And I don't care if he's, at a drug house and he needs to get out of there. He can call me. I'll come get him. I'll get him home, put him to bed, and we can talk about it later.
Right. Okay.
Um, but that goes from everything, whether it has to do with how things are going with his girlfriend, how things are going with his friends, um, if he's having trouble studying. That's one of the things that we've always tried to drive home, is that we can't help him if he doesn't let us know things are going on. And there's nothing in his life that is forbidden to talk to us about, because chances are we'll be able to provide some insight, and we try not to provide judgment on things, certainly, and have it come in between a conclusion or a successful outcome. um,
Yeah.
we're a team. We come together, we do things, and then we have, sit down and talk about things after we succeed in them, about what could have been done better, what went wrong.
Right. Kind of debriefing, a little debriefing that you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather get through a situation and then debrief about it afterward.
Right.
uh, because getting into the weeds in the middle of a situation can often compound the situation or cause failure in and of itself.
Right. Right. So when you were little, were you able to go to your parents and tell them anything, or did you have another older adult that you would share, like aunt or somebody?
You know, I was on my own a lot as a kid. My mom worked several jobs, and my stepdad was not very around. My sister moved out when she was 16, so I was 12. Um, for instance, when I started kindergarten, I was given an alarm clock and told what time I needed to be at the bus.
Oh,
So I've been getting myself up every morning and going to do what I needed to do since I was in kindergarten. Um, so I've always been very independent. Um, I always just dealt with my stuff on my own. I didn't
wow.
I didn't really have a good. I mean, my mom was there as much as she could be. She
Right.
wasn't there by choice. She was not there by necessity. So I could come to her with big things, but usually I just tried to figure stuff out on my own.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. It's different times for different people. Like me and my producer, we had a podcast where we talked about even though dad is there, he's not actively, asking you how was school and all this. Well, back in the day when fathers were just mostly providers and mom stayed home, if they had 5 or 6 kids, they're trying to work overtime. They're trying to get sleep. They're trying to go back to work, so they don't have time to play catch with you. They don't have
Right,
time to say, "How's your homework, Tommy? How's your homework, Barbara? How's your homework?" Go through all 7 kids and get all of that. They gotta get sleep. So
right,
different times, different measures. And at the time when you were coming up, mom needed money, and so she had to work. And a
right.
lot of out of the house, those days of husbands just taking care of wives are just few and far between now.
Yeah,
Everybody, or even the kids, as soon as they turn 14, they go get a job. So it's a little different, but understood. And at least you knew why your mom wasn't there. You're not blaming her. You
yeah.
realize that was
You
a
know,
sign.
one thing that my mom always kept with me was an open dialogue about what was going on and why things were the way they were, why it was she was, at work.
Right.
And, she shared the house finances with me from a very young age. And I did the same thing with Kurt. And um, there have been people in our lives who have said that I shared too much with him. And I
Wow.
said, why do you think I share too much? And they said, he doesn't need to know that the reason why you can't get a Slurpee today is because you had to make rent. And I said, yeah, he actually does need to know that. Now,
Yeah.
whether or not he fully understands the whole process, not yet. But when it's time for him to understand that process, he already has the pieces he needs to put it together. Because I didn't say you can't have a Slurpee because I said so. I said you can't have a Slurpee because I just paid for the house that we're sitting in and the meal that we're eating. So we can't have things that are over the top. Slurpee's not super over the top, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Um, I've always talked to him like he was an equal and a human. You know, sometimes you have to share things at a different level because somebody doesn't understand things. But I don't think that things should be hidden from people because they lack experience. You know, a 10-year-old human is a human with a fully functional brain. They understand a lot more than I think people give them credit for.
I agree. I agree. So, um, this the people that's trying to give you this advice or whatever. Um, did you get advice from people other than your mom and dad, older people? Like when you said we were just telling him about we can't do this, we can't do that. Are there people that you go to now for advice other than your mom and dad?
Um, I talk to my coworkers about stuff like that a lot. Um, I don't. I really don't talk to my parents that much. I have a good relationship with both of them, but I
Oh,
think it's because we don't talk a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly people that I take wisdom from. Um, Coworkers, friends, confidants.
mhm.
Um, yeah,
Okay. Well, as long as he knows that he can tell you anything, and you keep your lines of communication open, I think that's always good.
yeah.
That's always good. Yeah. So what is your favorite thing about Kurt?
Hmm. My favorite thing about Kurt.
It doesn't have to be one. It might be several things you love about him that you like about him.
I, him, just
Yes.
him. Just, I like his presence. I like um, I like his wit. Um, yeah, I like his personality. How's that? That's my favorite thing about him. I like his personality.
Not a wrong or a right answer. It's just what you love, because you helped make him. You helped shape them. And like you said, the Marines would have made him hard and edgy, but
Hmm.
yeah, you like the way he is.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I do. I really like the way he is.
yeah. Yeah, I just want to know what was it, that what parts about him that you like. You said it's his personality. Okay,
Yeah.
so how do you show him that you love him?
Um, I tell him as frequently as I can. Um, I hug him as frequently as I can. Um, I listen when he needs to talk. Um, I don't know. I I help him when he needs help. I show him love. That's how I show him that I love him.
It's no right or wrong answer.
Oh, I know, and it's just one of those things. I'm like,
You hadn't really thought about it,
yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that he knows I love him.
right? Yeah. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Real Dad Speak will return in a few seconds.
My name is Sean Williams, and I am the founder and president of the Dad Gang Incorporated. The Dad Gang is a support group for Black fathers, and we are on a mission to change the way the world views Black dads.
I do agree there's a misconception about Black parenting and Black fathers.
Welcome back, everybody, to Real Dad Speak. We're talking with Mr. Kirk Henry II, and we're talking about changing jobs from one traveling on the road to one where he's at home more and he can spend more time being a great dad to his son, Kirk III. All right, Kirk, we have come to the part of the show where I call it my final 5 questions or fill in the blank.
Okay.
So, number one, what do you think all boys need from their father?
Love
Okay.
and acceptance. Love, yeah, love and acceptance.
Okay. Number two, what are you trying to show your son about being a man and a dad?
Mm, that integrity is important.
Okay.
Follow through, doing what you say you're going to do.
All right. All right. Okay. Number three, what's the best advice your dad ever gave you?
Hmm. Anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Okay. All right. Number four, what's one important lesson that fatherhood has taught you?
You can never be a master without training an apprentice because
Okay.
you learn so much more by helping somebody else learn.
I like that. I like that. So fill in this blank. My dad is the best dad ever because, and this is from Kirk the Third. He's telling you why you are the best dad ever. How would he finish that?
Um, because he knows that I'm there for him no matter what, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Okay. Well, all right, sir. That is the end of this show, and I thank you very much for contributing all your stories and your time. I appreciate you. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure you help someone who's raising a son.
I hope so.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Real Dad Speak. A new episode uploads on YouTube every Tuesday at 7 p.m. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.